You're listening to The Storyteller's Journey with Sondra HeartStone and Josh Hicks.
Josh and I are currently working on a program that we are very excited about. It's called Garden for Life. We are traveling around the world teaching people how to grow food. Well, I will say this. We are making a film and stories and teaching on how to grow food. And we're starting in Montana, the Native Indian Reservation, then to Africa, to Haiti, Brazil, and around the world. And this will be available for people around the world. But this is heartbreaking. According to a CBS News report, 25% of adult Americans are food insecure. That means our children are food insecure.
If 25% of adults in the U.S. are food insecure, think about how many there are in the world, because we throw a lot of food away here.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a statistic earlier, 1.3 billion people in 2022 were food insecure. In a world of 9 billion?
Yeah.
And that was up significantly higher from the previous year.
Yes. And of course, places like Africa that are near and dear to our heart, they're really suffering. And there are many places that in Africa that the United Nations has actually pulled out of helping with food, and they're sending it to Ukraine. And, you know, there's all kind of politics involved. You know, the American government told a lot of the African presidents, you've got to choose which side you're on. And they said, hey, we're staying out of this. And so I think as a punishment, they're not getting the food aid that they were, which is pretty hard. But as far as America goes, there's one thing, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but they call it food deserts. And America has many food deserts, and I'm sorry to say we live in Texas, and of course Texas is a big state. This could be one of the reasons, but we have more food deserts than anybody. And a food desert means there's not a grocery store like within, you know, a mile or two of your home. And that usually happens in neighborhoods that are already struggling, that are low income. And why that's important is if you don't have transportation, you can't get to the grocery store. And if you're a senior citizen and you're low income, you're really in a bind. And some of these places don't even have like convenience stores.
Wow. It sounds like this is a great opportunity for the church, the ecclesia, the body of Christ to rise up and actually make a difference. Yeah. And that's part of why we're doing this Garden for Life project, because we want to enable and guide people, no matter where they are in the world or their situation, to raise their community up to be able to feed themselves. Because what is the church if we're not meeting people's needs? Jesus took care of people's physical needs all the time. If we're going to walk like him, this is one of the places where we need to do it. And what better way than to teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish, right? Let's teach people how to garden, how to grow food that is healthy and nutritious rather than eating mac and cheese.
Well, we did have a test program last season with the church in a small community here, not far outside of Houston, and that town is actually food desert. There's no grocery stores in that town at all. So this church took this on, and we taught them how to grow food, and they grew, a very large garden, probably close to 18,000 square feet. And they had not only enough for their church, the people in their church, to have fresh food, they gave away hundreds of pounds of food every week to the people in their community. Now, that's an outreach. And if you're looking for ways to get people to know about your church, this will do it. But, you know, this is what we need to do. I'm a firm believer that the church needs to be meeting more of the community's needs instead of the government.
Right. And if you are part of a church or a member of a community that's looking to get started, we do have content available now on HeartStoneNetwork.com, Victory Gardens for Life. It's a good starting place for you. Our big project, Gardens for Life, isn't quite here yet for you, but when it is, it'll be a big difference. But for now, we do have a place for you to start if you're encouraged now to go.
And you know what, Josh, let's show them. I want to show you one of the first places, if you've heard me say this before, I went to a refugee camp in January of 2020, right before COVID hit. And I saw the starvation. They were dependent upon the United Nations to feed them, and they were getting a cup of rice and a cup of beans, and that had to last each person for an entire month. Well, that's ludicrous. That's not going to feed anybody. And so the kids were just pencil thin, and you saw despair in the mothers' faces and hopelessness with the fathers. And so I came home with the idea that we would go back and teach people how to grow food. But COVID came and we couldn't go. So we put in a garden here on my property with the idea that I would video the food, how to do it. And that's kind of what birthed this whole vision. And in the process, we got connected with this amazing organization out of Zimbabwe called Foundations for Farming. And they started teaching regenerative farming 40 years ago, back when they thought they were crazy, before people really understood a lot of this. And in 2021, the president gave them an award because they taught so many farmers that they had the highest yield in 20 years, and they declared Zimbabwe food secure for the first time because of this organization. And then in the 2021 season, the United Nations actually honored them for, according to the United Nations, they were responsible for 9 million people being able to eat because of the training they did. So one of the people we trained was a young man who's a pastor in a refugee camp. And he got training, and I'm telling you, when he sent me this video, I cried. It's a dream come true, because he is growing food in a refugee camp for probably 50 families, and we're now sending him to other refugee camps to teach them how to do it. And this was soil we didn't think anything could grow in. But look at this. What you're looking at here is this big field of corn that he planted. It is gorgeous. And now I want you to see this row of carrots and these pictures of green bean plants. I'm telling you, I have never seen these kind of vegetables growing in Africa. I am so excited because they have such a poor diet. You know, all they really get is maize, you know, ground up. And these kids are not getting good nutrition, and you can see it in their face. You can see it in their eyes. And I'm telling you, this is fantastic. So if people can grow food in refugee camps, you can grow food where you are. You can grow, and if you don't have a big yard, you can grow containers of food, right?
Yeah, you can grow them. I've lived in some smaller houses. I mean, in just a very small area, you can grow a couple tomato plants. It may not feed you all you need, but it will definitely get some good vitamins and nutrition in your diet.
Well, but there's also a financial reason to that, because how much is a tomato plant, a transplant?
Couple bucks, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one tomato plant on average will give you 80 pounds of tomatoes, the slicers, or 300 cherry tomatoes. Now, what do you think 80 pounds of tomatoes is going to cost at the grocery store? Yeah. Or all those, you know, those little buckets of cherry tomatoes, you'd have to buy a bunch to have 300. It just makes economic sense.
It does.
To grow some of your own food.
And it's good for kids. I always grew up around a garden, and it taught me a lot of discipline.
Well, if you live in like an apartment or something like that, this is where I think churches really need to take advantage of this. And they need to open up. Most churches have property, and they could open up that property and bring community people in from the community and teach them how to grow food, and then share with the local food bank. Is it time for a break, Josh?
It's time for a break.
Okay, we got to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Check out HeartStone Network, a place where you'll find featured documentaries, testimonials, and great teachings by many of your favorites. It's a place that we hope will encourage you in your walk with Christ. While there, check out this series we have with Mario Murillo called I Am Not Ashamed. It's a great look into his past and how Jesus has brought him to be the man that he is today. Check us out, HeartStoneNetwork.com. Well, we are back, and we are talking about regenerative, am I saying that right?
Regenerative agriculture. But there's a better way that they say it.
What?
That our friends in Zimbabwe coined. Farming God's way.
Well, it's true.
I think it's beautiful. If you go out into the forest or any cluster of trees and you look, you have your trees growing, maybe some vines growing up the tree. You have all kind of plants growing on the forest floor. And there's all these different layers to it. And it's interesting because God made, vines. Vines need structure to grow. And they're going to grow on
my friend Fred
trees.
always says, who fertilizes the rainforest? No one.
No one.
God does.
Exactly.
See, he made it so things could grow without all that. And I will add that we are also teaching people how to grow food successfully without store-bought fertilizer. You can actually make fertilizer from, it's called chicken poop soup, or you could even have cow soup. I mean, you take their elimination and you put it with water, you let it sit for a while, and that becomes fantastic fertilizer. I mean, out on my property, we planted pecan trees, and all these trees we planted at the same time. Some of them are planted where horses used to live, and they're like twice the size of the ones that didn't have that. Yeah. So anyway, we were telling you earlier about a program we're doing called Garden for Life. It's it's not just a training program, but it's a story, and it's also a way to show people different parts of the world. We have an intro to the series that we have begun, and I want you to take a look at that now.
Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, something incredible happened. It all started with God creating many amazing things. God made the sky, the stars, and our beautiful planet called Earth. Earth is divided into different parts called continents and oceans. Let me show you. This continent is Europe, where you can find famous places like the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum. Then there is Africa, a continent full of many tribes and cultures and beautiful animals like elephants, lions, and giraffes. Asia is a place where you can find the Great Wall of China and many farmlands growing rice. In North America, there is the Statue of Liberty, the Grand Canyon, and the Rocky Mountains. While in South America, you can see the incredible, amazing rainforest and ancient ruins. Antarctica is a freezing cold place covered in ice. And Australia is home to unique animals like kangaroos and koalas. Even though each continent is special and has its own beauty, there is something that connects us all, something we all share. That special something is soil. Soil is really important because it's where life began. Did you know that God actually made people from the soil? It's true. The Bible tells us in the book of Genesis that He made man from the dirt. We really are created from this special substance. Soil is also where our food grows. The plants that give us amazing fruit and vegetables need soil to grow to feed us. So life is in the soil. Our earth is truly a remarkable place. God created it not only for us to have a place to live on, but also for us to take care of it. Just like how the earth gives us food and water, we need to show it love and care in return. The earth is like a friend who helps us every day by giving us what we need. It is up to us to protect it, to keep it clean and safe. I have a special story to share with you. It's a story of life that will teach us how to grow food, to feed ourselves and our family, even our community. Along our journey together, we will learn how to care for the earth God has given us to manage. This story will take us all over the world so we can see how people in different countries live and grow food. We can all learn from one another, and our lives become bigger and better when we see beyond our own home. Our story begins in North America, in the state of Montana, on an Indian reservation.
I love that clip. I think that's so fun with the horses flying and all of that. I get chills. I hope y'all are wearing your jacket because I got chills from that. I bet you did too. That is some good stuff. And it's exciting because people have always learned from stories. People love stories, and I'm excited to see the impact of this as we hand it over to different cultures in different parts of the world and show people around the world what the world looks like, how different people act, and how we really are so similar no matter where we are because we're human beings made by God. I'm really excited to see where this goes. And the people riding on the horse, I think it's just so cool.
Well, that's actually going to be replaced by 2 young Native Americans that are like in their 20s and have the long black hair of this young man, and he's got a paint horse. And I went, oh, this is just too good. So we're going and we start production in July. What I think is it's really interesting, but I'm really excited about it's fun that we're going to start in Montana with the Native American Indian Reservation, because Native Americans in the past were so connected to the soil. They were all about the land, I think, more than many other cultures. And that's why I think it's interesting to start with the Native Americans. And this is a story of 2 young Native Americans who want to be connected to their heritage and their roots. And so they go to older people in their tribe to find out what is this all about, being connected to the land. And of course, that starts with teaching them about the soil, because all life is in the soil. As you saw in that video, we're made from the dirt. Think about it, everything we eat comes from the soil, and our animals live off the soil. Life is in the soil.
Even our watches, our jewelry were once in the soil.
Really?
Oh yeah, think about it. Or like diamonds, right? That's coal, but it's all just this organic matter that's come together. I mean, a cell phone was once all kinds of crazy organic materials stuck in the ground somewhere.
Oh.
Everything.
Well, I hadn't thought about that. But what our story does is we're going to talk about soil and learn about the importance of soil and how we need to care for the soil in Montana. Then our story will take us to Africa, where we learn to grow row crops like corn, which they use for maize, and beans. And then we'll go on to Haiti to learn about growing rice. And then we're going to go to South America. And what's interesting is at the end of our sections on how to grow food, we're then going to be teaching people, especially this is in third world countries, because, like Africa, 80% of the people are fed off small farmers. And small farmers would be like, they call it 2 hectares. That's like 5 acres. They're 5 acres or less. And our group in Zimbabwe taught these people how to go from, they were growing 5 acres and still could not feed their family. And they figured out a way to show them how to grow food, more like a tennis court size. And they said, okay, there's 52 weeks a year. We're going to show you how to grow 52 rows of maize, because that's their staple over there, the corn, and then the vegetables. And so it's just genius. So 1 row, they harvest 1 row, and that's a week. The next row is, I'm telling you, it's just amazing what they've done. And so these people in Africa can feed their family for a year for $50.
It's amazing. Watching the way, it's so creative the way that they've come up with all these processes. I think a lot of it did come through prayer and watching what God does in nature. And the creativity is just beautiful.
How it came to pass, there was a man who was a very large tobacco farmer in Africa, and he was kind of a rough guy, and went to bars and played rugby and all that other. Well, Jesus got a hold of him. He got saved, and then he got convicted that he could no longer sell tobacco. And when he said, I'm not going to grow tobacco anymore, the banks came to him and said, are you out of your mind? You're making so much money. Why are you going to stop doing this? He said, I have to stop. And they said, no, you're nuts. If you don't go back to tobacco, we're pulling out and we're not going to loan you money anymore. And he said, but I can't. I made God a promise. They went, you're a fruitcake. But he knew what promise he had made to God. So he started growing. So he lost his farm. They pulled out, and now he's unemployed. Now what is he going to do? He's gone. You talk about riches to rags. And he had kids to feed. And he got a job being a farm manager for a widow who had thousands of acres. And he lost money the first year. And then he lost money the second year. And he lost money the third year. And he went to God and said, God, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to make it if you don't show me how to grow food. So God just kind of took him out of nature and began to speak to him. And I'm telling you, this is what people are now calling regenerative farming. But this man, Brian Aldrich, was way ahead of the curve. And when he started telling people about how we need to grow this food and don't till it and use mulch and all the things, they thought he was crazy. So what happened is he was pretty sure God spoke to him. So his first season, he took a small portion of these thousands of acres and planted it the way he thought God was telling him. The rest he did the traditional way. Well, that year they had one of the worst droughts in 20 years. So the people are their crops are dying, people are starving, and yet, would you believe, Brian's crop failed except for the part he did God's way, and it was so prolific. Would you believe that massive farm still turned a profit just from the small area he did God's way?
Wow.
I'm telling you.
I get chills every time I hear that.
He heard from God. So then what happened is he started trying to teach other people. And this is an interesting story. I'll tell you, one of the problems with Africa is witchcraft. He finally convinced a family near him to grow food the way he was saying. And he finally found a family that agreed to do it. And he said, okay, look, it's coming up. It's beautiful. It looks gorgeous. I've got to go take care of my farm. And when it's harvest time, I'm coming back and we're going to harvest together and see how well you've done. He was so excited to go back at harvest time. And when he got there, his heart sank because it was dead. Nothing had happened. They had never weeded it. They had never mulched it. They hadn't cared for it. He was just sick. He couldn't figure out what happened. 3 years in a row, he did this with the same result. And he just said, God, I don't understand. I'm trying to do what you want me to do, which is to teach people, but it's not working. Well, then he found out what happened. In African cultures, jealousy is a big thing. And if one person is doing better than everybody else, they get very jealous. So after Brian left and this field was doing so well, the rest of the community went to this farmer and they hired a witch doctor to put a curse on this crop. And so when the farmers went out to take care of that, they saw the witchcraft device, whatever they call
Voodoo
it.
doll
Something
yeah.
in the garden. And they said, oh no, if we step in that garden, we will all die. So it wasn't that they didn't want to do what Brian said. They were afraid they would all die. That's the power that witchcraft had on them. So Brian finally had to convince them, some of them a little at a time, that the witchcraft was nonsense. And then little by little, they started doing it because there's a lot of witchcraft over there. But, time has gone by and there's still a lot of witchcraft over there, but they've made inroads, obviously, and they're teaching millions of people how to grow food. And I'm telling you, they are changing the face of Africa.
Oh, I see it. I believe it. It's amazing. I mean, back to it, 9 million people in 2021. That's got to be even more by now.
And you know how that was? That wasn't, excuse me, Josh, that wasn't just all through big classes. It was like, okay, you go teach 50 people, you go teach 100, but here's what's interesting. According to the government, over 60% of those farmers that learned how to do this the right way with just one day of training learned it through cell phones and other media is how it was taught, because they couldn't get to enough people one by one. So 45% or 40% is taught one-on-one. 60% was through media. That's how I know that what we're doing is going to work, because 91% of the world has cell phones. 91%. And we also have these little devices. It's about the size of a cell phone, called a light stream. I'm going to put a picture up on the screen. That's a light stream. And when you go into a community, we can take these training videos, download it onto this light stream, and then when they go into the community, you turn it on and it becomes intranet. So people with cell phones can watch these videos. It will cost them nothing. It will cost them no data, no nothing. It will be free. And that's how they can look at that content.
And if you're sitting here wondering, no one in Africa has a phone, that's...
Oh, yeah, they
Oh,
do.
yeah, we've been walking with a woman down to a well. You know what I'm talking...
Let's roll that clip. That's a great one. Watch this. Now that's a picture.
Hello.
Isn't that a riot? She's going down to get dirty water, but yes, she has the cell phone. Did you know she was at hello? So I'm telling you, this is the greatest time to be alive. And I have been a filmmaker for almost 40 years. And I have to say, I do believe that this is the most important project I've ever worked on. And I just tell God, I'm just so thankful, God, that you would give me the opportunity like this. You know, when I stood in that refugee camp, Josh, weren't you with me on that trip? I stood in that camp and I saw the hunger. And I said, God, I can't solve world hunger, but there's got to be something I can do to feed somebody. And I thought if we could feed 50 people, but what's happening with Isaac in this camp? He's feeding hundreds of people with his gardens. And I'm telling you, this Garden for Life is going to teach people all over the world how to care for themselves and not be dependent on a government to feed them or handouts. And I have met people who could not feed their family, and they learned this farming God's way. And now they are living in nice homes in Africa. They're feeding their community. They're building businesses, and they've become successful businessmen. This is a game changer. Do you know that all the money, so many organizations, ministries, and NGOs raise money to buy food to distribute around the world? And it is shocking. It's in the billions. It's in the billions of dollars of the money that is raised to just feed somebody a meal. And it's something like 20-25% of the money that's raised to do that is stolen and stuffed in pockets and payoffs and briberies and stuff like that. So much. If we can teach a man to fish, I'm telling you. And you know, I've had people say, I even get chills on that one. This is just, God is so good. He's found a way to take care of his people. And if you want to be a part of this and you want to buy some of the light streams or you want to help us get this project made around the world, we had money to get started, but we don't have money to finish. We have money to finish what we're doing in Montana. We don't have enough to finish going to Africa and Brazil. By faith, we stepped out and doing this. And if you want to be a part of that, we would welcome it. God bless you for that. If you want to, you go to our site, HeartStoneNetwork.com, and up at the top, you'll see a tab that says, what does it say? Donate.
Yep.
Yeah. And we welcome you. These devices are $100 each. If you want to give $5, that's great, or $100, or whatever God would put on your heart to do, or pray. Pray for this project to come to completion and pray for the people to be reached. Because this is, we are coming into a life and death time with food.
Yeah. And as things in the world get crazier and crazier, it's just going to progress. And I want to see people all over our country, all over the world, setting up gardens, feeding the children, teaching the children how to grow food. A great story of that is our friend Make Shore in Zimbabwe, who's gone into the schools. This man, you know, the schools were too far away for the kids to walk there. Okay, let's build schools right here in the village. They build schools. Well, what are they going to learn? Oh, they're going to learn about the Bible. They're going to learn about how to live a godly life, and they're going to learn how to grow God's way.
Because see, what happened is the government in Zimbabwe came up with a school feeding program, and it bombed. So Make Sure and even some other men went to the schools and said, hey, we know how to solve this problem. We've got a school feeding program. The school gives them land right outside the school, right there on the property. They are teaching the children how to put in a garden, how to grow the food, and as a result, when the kids come to school every day, they have food, and then they share and send the food home with the families. I want you to look at these pictures that Make Sure sent me of some of these gardens he's doing for schools. Look at this. They are immaculate. They are pristine. They are gorgeous. And when we were over there, I want to show you this picture. This is how they're watering these plants. It's a solar pump, but then the water is taken up to this big blue tank that you'll see, and the lines feed out and go down, and he's spreading this out among schools. Like this one tank here is going to do 3 schools. And that system was $1,000. I'm telling you, if we could just do that in America, there's so much red tape, trying to work with schools. But I just want to encourage churches churches, this is a great thing to do. Get involved, and you talk about a home group. This is an awesome home group. You bring people to the church on the property. You grow the food together. I've interviewed kids that worked at that garden down at that other church we did here outside of Houston, and without the parents around, I said to the kids, what do you think of this? And the kids, be it 5 years old or 13, said, I love it. I love it. Watch, I'm planting something. And I said, what do you love about it? Do you know what the kids said to me?
All of them.
No, they said, all the kids said this, because we get to do it with their families. Oh, wow. See?
It's amazing.
See? That's inside of us. It's just great. I just can't say enough about this growing your own food, and I really hope churches will get involved. Listen, if you have questions about how to get involved or what to do, reach out to us. Josh, what's our reach out number?
contact@heartstonenetwork.com.
Yeah.
Or if you're on the Pray app, you can go on there and do the little testimonial thing on our profile.
And
scroll
we'll read
to the
that
bottom.
message.
We'll get that message, and make sure to put some contact info so we can reach back out to you and get you the information you need.
Yeah, I'm telling you what, church, we need to rise up, and we need to take this food problem over. One thing I do want to show, do I have time to tell you one more thing?
We're running tight on time.
Okay, I want you to look at this globe that's spinning. Okay, and I want you to see, I'm going to put lines around here of the arable land left on our planet Earth to grow food. What do you notice? Okay, like in America, we have cities and stuff. What you notice is that the last place on planet Earth to really grow food is Africa. I think someday we're coming to the point where Africa may actually be the breadbasket of the world soon, which is, I know, hard to believe, but that's the way God works. He takes the least. Anyway, we have run out of time. I do thank you so much for being with us today. And Josh, thanks for joining me today. I do hope you'll join us next time. Be blessed.